So first thing, going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves and share what region that they're from.
Hello, I'm Beth Roth, and I am from Upper Perk Robotics in Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Dane Layson, and I'm from Davis High Robotics in northern Utah.
Hi, I'm Ryan Osweiler. I'm from Nova Systemic, which is a STEM outreach branch of Northern Virginia Community College, clearly in Virginia.
I'm Krista Smothers. I'm with St. George's Independent School in Carterville, Tennessee.
I'm Chris Stewart. I'm with Tiger Robotics out of South Dakota.
So what we're going to do is we have a few questions from VIQC. Going to go through, allow the panelists if they would like to respond, they'll go ahead and respond. Once we get through with those questions, time remaining, we'll take some questions from the audience. All right, so the first question was, what do you charge? How do you decide to charge your typical event fee, and what determines that?
We decided that we would charge as low as we could because we wanted to allow as many teams as possible. Also, with IQ having a lower overhead, we previously had done $25, but we bumped it to $30 this past year in order to cover the $5 fee.
We as well do $30, but for our state tournament, we upped that since the state tournament we have a few more features. So I've hosted the last two state tournaments, so we bumped that up to $50 for the state tournament just because we're bringing in more outside things.
So we go a little higher, about $55, and I think general rule of thumb is you have to do a budget before you start doing any of this, because depending on what your custodial fees are, if you're in school, we have a very intensive trailer program, so works some of those fees into it, food for volunteers, things like that. So regardless of what you charge, my advice would be definitely plan a budget, figure it out and cost out accordingly.
Luckily, I'm about middle of the pack. In Utah, we basically seem to have put all registration fees for events at about $45. Previously, it was $45 fee. We have it to $45. Very similar to what everybody else has said. You got to figure out your budget. You got to figure out what you need to charge to be able to break even, and then add a little bit because we're doing it. We've got to be able to say that it's a fundraiser. The school's got to see that you're making money, and then on to us do it.
Ditto.
Okay. Thank you, panelists. So our second question, since there are event partners who do run IQ and VRC events, one of the questions was, what are pretty much the main differences between running an IQ and a VRC event?
The main difference for us, clearly the IQ, is the lack of field electronics. There's no match controller. Clearly, it's quicker, there's less setup time, matches are only a minute long. I think that the difference this year clearly is going to be, for those tournaments that offer STEM versus those that don't. I know VRC tournaments, they can run a long time. I've been a part of IQ tournaments that run a long time too, but at least from my experience in doing both, I do like IQ in the fact that you can run a shorter tournament and actually have a legit, good, solid tournament that you could do in 5 or 6 hours. Sometimes I've seen even shorter, but clearly, state championships, big events are different. But the field electronics for me clearly is the big difference.
I think another big difference is just the amount of space that you need is much, much smaller. The fields are so much smaller. The children are smaller, but there's just more of them. And there's always a lot more adults. That's something that is surprising that I've talked to other people about, that the younger kids have a lot more family members that come, so you need to plan for more adults that are going to be there for IQ tournament than for a VRC tournament.
Herding cats versus herding kittens.
Okay. VIQC, they do have their entourages with them. So on the topic of fields, how do you go about deciding how many fields for your IQ event that you're going to utilize?
I come from the Northeast. In the Northeast, the parents want their children to be involved in everything, but they don't want it to take all day. So we began year before last running 5 fields at a time, 5 fields on the same clock. So we're running the first 5 matches in the first minute. One of those fields is skills. The other 4 are so I said it wrong. The first 4 fields are for qualifiers. 1 field is for skills, The first hour of the morning from 7:45 to 8:45, all 5 fields are running skills. At that time, that's when we also do try to get a lot of our STEM judging and those judging events done. At lunchtime, all 5 fields are running skills, so we wrap skills up pretty quickly. We end up wrapping up the entire day in about 4 hours.
So in Utah, typical event that we'll see in IQ for about 60 teams, that's going to be about 30 middle and about 35 elementary and about 25 middle. We'll try to have 3 fields for elementary tournament, 2 fields for middle school tournament, so that the time frames work out with about the same splits on them. And then we try to have the same number of fields for skills that we do for matches. In Utah, typically in skills for IQ, we'll see about a 90 to 95% complete participation. That's programming and driver. Teams want to take every run they can. We typically will allow 4 runs of each, and so we've got a lot of runs to get through. And then on top of that, for about every 5 teams, I like 1 practice field in the pit area.
Yeah, I think there's many different combinations. I know in Virginia we've tried both, where we have the separate blocks and close all the fields for skills. We've had other events where we have the 3 competition fields, and then we have a couple of skills fields set up somewhere else. Clearly there's pros and cons to both. I think it's knowing your teams, knowing what space you have, volunteers you have. But really, I think with a good plan, you can make, with IQ, the beauty of it is you can really make any logistical plan work as long as your plan is good and you have volunteers.
Kind of the rule of thumb that I use when choosing how many fields to put out for a tournament is 1 field for every 12 teams. That's kind of the rule of thumb that I use. And then I have the same number of competition fields as skills fields, just as you said. And I also have that same number of practice fields. So not quite as many practice fields as you have, but so 1 field for every 12 teams is kind of my rule of thumb.
Okay, thank you. So the next couple of questions have to do with volunteers. So if each of you would be able to share how you go about recruiting volunteers for your events.
I've hosted the only IQ tournaments in Memphis, and so we don't have a lot of volunteer trained to come in and step in with new schools and everything. So I've done a lot of morning of grabbing people, but also have been able to take advantage of local VRC teams have come in and help run the skills field and be scorekeepers and things like that. So in addition to trying to get schools to bring in at least 1 person, I've had to be creative in some of the other people that were available for short notice.
I actually stole a page out of some of the sports teams in our area who require parents to volunteer time. So my parents signed a volunteer contract that they're required to volunteer at least 20 hours a season. And so they put in time coming in to help with concession stands to help queue up students to help reset fields, things like that. So my biggest bunch of volunteers comes from parents. Then when we go to our judges, then we're going to our sponsors. And the other teams that come to our events, we encourage them to have their sponsors send a judge as well. And so that the sponsors really get a good look at what their money is going towards.
Yeah, I think the key is, your parent volunteers, you can stick them on a lot of different tasks, but the key really comes to the judging room. Really to have the unbiased, wherever you might pull that from, but just to make sure that's a quality individual that knows the rules, knows the game, knows what's allowed, what isn't. Because again, like you said, pulling parents to have, sometimes they just have to fill in some of those roles. But having the person or two in that judging room that can be unbiased to say, hey, yes, we that's okay, or no, you can't do that, it's not okay. There's nowhere in the rules that says you can rule for this or that. That for us, having that key head judge, not just again for IQ, like those that do STEM, but also really for the design notebook that really knows that rubric, that knows maybe they have some VRC experience that they can blend in to help with that.
I think of judging like I think of Monopoly. If I'm not cheating, I'm not trying. Because one thing I will do is I will talk to the other event partners and find out where they get their judges in that same area. and then I will piggyback off of that. We have an Air Force base near us that has a lot of opportunities for their employees to come and give their time and get compensated from the Air Force Base. I also have my robotics club when we run, because I actually run a VRC club. I don't run an IQ club. So I require my VRC students to come in and help run those tournaments. And then I also have my robotics class, much like if they were required to go to a couple of performances. I require my robotics students to come and help. So I end up with an army of teenagers, and then I just need to find, I like to have adults as judges because coaches like to see adults be judges, not quite as often students. I've had times I've had to throw students in there because that's what I have and it's time to get going, but ultimately you use what you got, you talk to other people in your area, and any sponsor you can possibly get on board.
I think one of the things that I learned in this past 2 days, I'm the head of my organization, and I have come to understand clearly that I've got to get out and pound pavement. I've got to go to local engineering firms. I've got to go, we have a trade school not too far away. There are people who need to do community service hours. I've never given them a thought. I was relied on my parents. So my eyes were open. I've got to get out and pound pavement. I've got to start doing my job to bring in more knowledgeable judges.
Okay, some fantastic ideas on getting some volunteers. So once you have your volunteers, what have you found to be the most effective way to train them?
When I have my list of judges and my referees and everybody that's going to be involved in the tournament, first of all, I send them everything that I can, PDF-wise, video-wise, links to training videos. We set up on, so I give them all of that ahead of time, hoping they'll read it. But we set up on Friday nights, so I ask them to come in Friday night, and then that's when I do my one-on-one work with them. I try to make sure that especially those people who are judging projects or judging notebooks, that everybody's proficient is proficient. We numbered we were started a long time ago giving a number value to that rubric for judging notebooks. And I wanted to be sure that everybody's 3 was a 3 because we all have different ways of interpreting things. So we do all that work on Friday night, the night before.
Delegation, again, because I'm having my VRC kids run the majority of my event, I will have a kid that's a senior that knows how judging has worked because he's been getting judged for 6 years. He will be my judge trainer, and my kid that's been a ref has been, I'll put a lot of it on my seniors and I'll have them do the training, and then I come back and do a spot check, make sure that the volunteers know what they need to be doing so that verification that everything's been trained correctly, and that spot check takes a very small amount of time. That way the majority of my prep goes in before we're even setting up for the tournament, because that 24-hour period where you're setting up for a tournament is, there's too much stuff to get done in that time to do all that training just by myself.
I think mostly we have relied on the resources that are available on the event partner website. Even so far as printing out the bullet points and just making sure that I sit down with volunteers. Okay, do you understand this and this and this? So even just taking that few minutes, either Friday night or Saturday morning, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I need to do a better job of having key people in place earlier. So that's something that Shelley will be working with us this year for me. And so being able to make sure that they're watching the videos, because I send them all the links, but then how long did they watch? So finding ways to follow up that people have been doing what I've been sending them as well.
Okay, thank you. So still on the topic of volunteers, what are some things that you do show appreciation or take care of the volunteers during your events?
Try to have good food. Earlier when we were talking about the fee that we have, we've been doing, I'm in an independent school, and so one of the ways that I have my parents volunteer is to provide food. So the food that's provided to volunteers is part of my volunteer system when I have people bring in the food.
Yeah, and I think, just the appreciation too. I think we all would agree the food is the number one factor there. But, when I first started, yeah, I'd send everyone an email, Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, or whatever, say, hey, thanks. But I think it goes a long way just to have that personal touch, really seek those people out during the event, just really say thank you for helping, because, and as a husband, as a father, myself, I know what I'm giving up to be at a tournament on a Saturday, and these people are doing the same thing. So, really just going out of your way to really say thank you. And I found that it's not a magic solution, but then those people will come back for you in the future.
Okay, so what would,
If you take the time to go over and read the charts on the wall, there's some really great stuff over there, ideas and ways to show appreciation, different ideas. So please take a look at that. And it doesn't matter if you're VRC or IQ. There's just really good ideas over there.
As a teacher, I like when my administrators know when I do stuff, so I make sure my administrators know about my teachers that have volunteered, and copy them and the thank you that I send to the teachers. So they deserve an extra special thank you sometimes.
thank you. Okay, so what would your best piece of advice be for a new or relatively new event partner?
I would consider myself still a relatively new event partner. I've run a few tournaments. A few of those have been picking up and setting up in some other location. I think the biggest thing is it's okay to admit that you don't know everything that's going on. And I've had coaches tell me, okay, yeah, this ran late, but you were open and honest and made plenty of announcements and let us know what was going on. So my advice is just be, hey, we're running late. Here's the reason. I'm working on it. Please be patient. I think that goes a really long way to helping people stay happy if things are not going the way they should be.
To piggyback off that, I would tell them that it's okay to make mistakes, and the kids at IQ level are much more forgiving of mistakes than the kids at the VRC level.
Yeah, I agree. Surround yourself with good people. I've been fortunate enough to do IQ since its inception. And I tell people, these new EPs that come in like, oh, I can never do this, I can never do this. I say, I'm still learning. I still pick up new things. I even learn from new EPs. I go, I take my, I was coaching, I take my teams to an event, and yeah, someone did something, even in the concession stand that I picked up as something I can use. Surround yourself with good people. Use those resources. We're fortunate to have a very, very good trailer system, and I encourage those event partners, pay the money for it, pay for an intern as well. We have a good internship program. We have college kids, high school kids that come out. They'll run all the electronics for you and teach you how to do it right there. So they'll be that support person for you. So use those resources, make connections, and surround yourself with those good people.
Really think you live and die by your volunteers. That and Xanax. I know when I started running IQ tournaments, I'd run enough VRCs that I knew how to handle the stress. My first time running a VRC, I don't think I slept for 3 days prior. And so now I know Benadryl and Z-Quil and Tylenol PN. You gotta mix it up a little bit.
I don't know if you really want to follow that advice.
You don't want to use the same one the entire time, or then when you get the worlds, it doesn't work anymore.
And I've learned to get to my event by 6 o'clock in the morning and make sure all the coffee's ready.
That's good too.
But shadowing is very beneficial for new EPs. Just go to some other people's events and walk around and watch what they do, take notes, ask questions.
This is from a coach/EP standpoint, but I've learned that I need to have at least 2 people who are in charge of my teams, because one will wander off and then the kids will start trying to find me and I'm in the middle of something. So if you're going to be an EP, make sure you've got somebody that can help with your teams.
So sorry, I thought of this earlier, but this next comment threw me off. I always start out in driver's meeting, I make sure, and so really it's more of an event meeting, I make sure that all of the parents and the coaches and the students all understand that I'm human and I don't react well to confrontation. And so if they have a question about something, they need to come to me as politely as possible, and I'm more than willing to help them. So it's a very passionate time for a kid, and for a coach, and for a parent. They come at me with constructive information that you need help respectfully. I'm always more than happy to help. The kids, they just need to be reminded. Like the kids, and really more than parents, just need to be reminded. And that's part of the code of conduct. So.
Indeed it is. Okay. Is there anyone that has any questions for our panel? And yes.
So my question was, last year was my first year to do an IQ tournament, and I felt like I had enough fields to run skills, to run, I had 40 some odd teams at my event, and for some reason, that wasn't enough fields for my passionate coaches that were there. Do you allow other teams to be able to bring those fields in, their own personal fields in, if you have the space? And if you do you make them require them to share the fields with other teams, or let them be on their own? Because I literally had probably 20 teams that brought their own fields, and I ran out of space because of the fields and my kids in the same area.
So the question basically is allowing coaches to bring their fields to the event and to share them with other teams, correct?
Or how do you, if you don't have the space, then how do you monitor that? If you have your own fields out there, do you have that problem, or have you had that problem?
So where I run VRC, I don't actually, my first year I was doing IQ, I had a couple fields. Now I have no fields. I kind of coordinate for the state, and I end up buying a lot of equipment for new teams. So I bought a whole bunch of people fields because I didn't want to have to house fields, store fields, transport fields, do all of that. So I actually, the way I would reciprocate to that is say, I don't have any fields, so I need all of you to bring your fields to help me. So if you want to have access to fields, you need to bring them. My stipulation there is going to be I don't want too many fields, because there's a certain point at which you've got too many, which is where on the practice field side of things, I think one field per 5 teams is about the maximum space that I would want to allow. But ultimately, I would think you need to determine how much space you have for practice fields and only allow that many, and if people want to bring them, they need to sign up.
Based off of what I've seen in other tournaments too, in the first leg of league and when you go to Worlds, you could also just mark off their pit area size, and if they want to have a practice field, that's fine. It's going to be in their pit area. And so if they want more space, then they might have to share with the pit area next to them, just like at Worlds for VRC. So if I were running into that problem, that's how I'd handle it. I'd have a marked out pit area and say, if you want to bring your field, that's fine. It just has to be within your pit.
Okay. Yes. So the question is, how similar is an FLL tournament to VIQC?
I used to run FLL tournaments as well. It's been a while, but the tournaments for IQ go much quicker, like the rounds go much faster. That's one thing. The pit areas are pretty similar in as far as practice fields and stuff like that, but it definitely goes at a much faster clip than FLL.
I mean, not too much to add, but I mean, those that have done both, I mean, they are two different events. I mean, they are for a variety of reasons. My advice would be, instead of, we could talk for 2 hours on how they're different, but I would seek out, I can talk to you because we're close by, but if you can attend an IQ event, or even just see, maybe go to YouTube and find something, but talk to those people around, again, that can give you the a little more abbreviated than we probably have time for, but they are very different. So I would not go into an IQ tournament thinking it's like an M12.
Was there another question? Yes. So the question is, any strategies that they use to recruit other schools in the area to participate in VIQC? Any?
Anytime I have a chance to speak at a conference, in South Dakota we have something called the TIE Conference, Technology and Education. I will speak at those conferences and present IQ as well as all the other robots that I use in my classroom, and try to encourage other districts to look at that as an option, as a way to use in the classroom or as a way to get into competitions. The price point is nice, and so when you talk about the price point of IQ, that's a big selling point. But just taking every opportunity I can to speak at different meetings with different people.
And a lot of times too, it comes from the top. Kids might see it, they think it's great. Teachers might see it's great, but then they reach resistance when it comes to administration. So I found, like you said, exactly right. I found, instead of trying to go from my level up, I try to go from the top down, because I see that the schools in our area that are behind it, the principals, the administrators behind it. Those that aren't, it's because administrators and leaders don't care. So I try to go at it, clearly both ways, but try to go from the top down as well, to try to sell them on as well.
We do something similar. My daughter works with me. We take students to local conferences. She's doing a conference the end of this month, training teachers. It's STEM education for teachers, and my robot kids will be there. And so we allow the children to do their demonstrations, do their explanations, do their teaching, answer the questions, show their STEM projects, take teachers through their engineering notebooks. It's highly impactful when the students can do the work, can do the selling.
I really found that just simply contacting people and contacting administrators and contacting the people in the trenches, the coaches of the teams, and seeing who's interested really opens a lot of doors. My school district's been really lucky because STEM is being pushed so massively right now, and they bought into Project Lead the Way massively on the elementary side. So there's a ton of schools starting, and I think that's part of the reason we got a district/regional grant. We were kind of on the borderline there. So really, to me, it's just contacting them and finding out who's interested and how you can help them.
I learned about VEX at a teacher conference. I just attended a workshop on robotics, and that's how I learned about it. So that's probably a really great way to bring in interest, that I'm going to go teach a workshop to teachers at a conference.
Thank you. All right, so one question.
Innovation for building close to is where they manufacture a lot of racks. There's a metal manufacturing facility.
So you're sharing that Project Lead the Way is a great tool as well.
All of your events on Saturdays, do you have any weekend events in facility? What do they look like?
Mine have all been on Saturdays.
We're on Saturday too, and I know some places will have a Sunday snow day if that's what works. Our state championship is a Friday, Saturday, and for IQ, we're doing it now where elementary is Friday, middle school's Saturday, but VRC is over the 2 days. But yeah, I mean, I know some people do leagues that, might meet weeknight or something, but I mean, yeah, generally speaking, Saturday.
Okay, Is there one more question? Okay, well, I would like to thank, oh, I'm sorry.
In Utah, we had about 15 competitions this past year. We had one on a Friday. Some teams seem to like it because the kids want to get out of school, but that was about it. For us at least, the elementaries and middle schools were a lot more hesitant to let kids out of school for all the competitions on Fridays.
Just to piggyback off that, we talked earlier about how IQ teams have a lot more spectators because a lot more parents and grandparents are going to want to come see those younger kids. A lot more parents don't like Fridays because then they have to take a day off of work to come watch the kids. So Saturdays are a little bit better for those spectators, just so they're not having to take time off of work, because they're the ones that are really going to want to be there compared to some of the higher weeks.
And then the school has to provide all transportation. So there's a lot of issues to doing that, whereas for VRC, most of the kids transporting themselves, at least for me.
Okay, well, thank you.